BMW M4, driving it, maintaining it, what it's like to live with it as a daily driver and a commuter, and why ultimately I'm probably going to trade it in. So, the M4, obviously for myself, been a total dream car, and before that was the M3, but it's just the sort of car you dream about since you're a teenager, and for me it was like the E36, E46, E92, and now the F82, and finally you're at the G generation. And you know, as the years go by, I'm starting to wonder, like, at what point am I actually gonna buy this thing? And when you're on the Dave Ramsey mindset, if you don't know, he's like a financial guru on YouTube, gives all kinds of fairly good advice. But if you're on his mindset, then you're like, I'm not gonna buy it because you gotta buy everything in cash. You gotta eat rice and beans for the rest of your life, and you gotta spend $2,000 on a Corolla and drive it forever. At some point, it's like, yeah, I get it, fiscal responsibility and all that. Save up, have like a 12-month emergency fund, and don't overspend and don't abuse your credit cards. But at some point, like, live a little. It's like Warren Buffett. The story goes that many years ago, he was already starting to make insane amounts of money playing with stocks, and his wife finds dividend pay stubs or whatever in the trash, and she's like, are you fucking kidding me? Warren, you're gonna buy me a fucking house right now, you cheap asshole. Because they're like living in an apartment or something. So don't be on that level. Like, what's the point, right? Have some fun. So with all that out of the way, here's what I got. This is obviously BMW M4. I don't know if you can see the badge. There's the proof. BMW M4. It's a 2015. I bought with 60,000 miles. Yeah, obviously famous inline 6-cylinder engine, 3 liters, but there's a twist, of course. 2 turbochargers, not just one, and that makes it good for some life. 425 horsepower, 406 pound-feet of torque. Crazy numbers when you're like me and you're coming from driving nothing but Subarus your whole life. So everything you heard about this car is probably true. The handling is insane. The acceleration is fantastic. The brakes are astronomically good. It's got poise. It's just a really fun car to drive. And let's not forget our good friend, the stick shift. Yeah. Oh yeah. Slamming gears in this thing is just a magnificent experience. So definitely hook yourself up with that manual. Not that that automatic transmission with the clickers. Like, man, that's boring. Anyways, so I've been dailying this. I've probably put about 10,000 miles on it at this point, mostly for commuting. Oh, let's talk about cost before I get into that. It was 38,000 bucks at the dealer. Then you deal with the tag title bullshit and of course taxes. So it was more like 41,000. I put about $8,000 down. Took out a loan, of course I did, like 60 months, maybe 72. I don't even remember what it is. Regardless, but they hooked me up with a really shitty interest rate, like 4.5%. Because I decided to once again go with a stupid bank that starts with a B and ends with an A. Awful bank. They really just fucked me over for how many years I've been with them. Regardless, I'll probably go with a credit union next time. But my monthly is about $620 a month, and the insurance, which has to be comprehensive coverage, and because I'm still probably in that demographic who historically wraps these things around trees, so the insurance is of course $150 a month. So yeah, $770 a month is a lot of money to pay for a car, but it's a fucking M4, and I don't care. I can afford it, and because I can afford it, I don't care. As long as I've got a job, we're good. If I don't have a job, fuck it, I'm still going back to Subarus with 200,000 miles on them. It doesn't matter to me that much. I just wanted to try this, have some fun. Anyways, so commuting with this it's an interesting bag. Obviously, it's got all the benefits that I talked about performance. It's generally just really fun to drive. Practicality, it's very interesting. You got back seats that fold down. The trunk is generously sized. I've actually carried furniture in this. I don't recommend it, but you can. I totally did. Small furniture, albeit, but still, you can carry furniture in this. Mileage, the gas mileage, surprisingly, as long as you don't drive like a complete moron, you can actually get 28 miles per gallon on the highway. It's true. I've done it before. which is impressive considering the amount of power this engine puts out. The ride comfort is okay. It depends. If I still lived in New England, where, especially in Massachusetts, where the roads are just such fucking garbage, I would regret this decision. Because you'll feel every bump. It's a true sports car, maybe even a race car. You will feel every single bump. Here where I'm at, they do a good job with the roads actually, so it's relatively smooth. As long as the roads are smooth, we're fine. And last but not least, the interior here, it's all physical buttons, and I like that. I hate modern cars and their stupid touchscreens. I'm not good at touchscreens. I have these magnificent banana hands, and my accuracy with touchscreens is very low, and it would drive me bonkers if I wanted to just even adjust my air conditioning and I had to like touch and navigate through menus. I would hate that, and I would wrap this car around a tree. I don't like taking my eyes off the road. So, with all that being said, why trade it in? And that's because this car wants you to drive like a gorilla. Every single stereotype about BMW drivers, I thought, no, it's not gonna happen to me. I'm a very reasonable man, and I'm not gonna be an asshole. Turns out that was a lie. I turned into an asshole. I did learn how to use my turn signals though. They're not too weird. Unlike what most people say, like, oh, BMW does turn signals weird. I don't know what they're going on about. They're a bit different, but they're fine. They're not like you have to solve a Rubik's Cube in order to turn your turn signals on. It's not like that. Like I said, this car is just gorilla mode at all times. I think you're going to find that with most cars that are geared towards racing and sports. Because, the acceleration is just so much fun. There's a temptation, right? It's like putting a bowl of cocaine in front of cocaine addicts. Like, just look at it. Don't plunge your face into it. Just hang out with it. You know, don't be tempted by it. Why are you tempted by it? Because here's what happens: you get into this car, it's low to the ground, you turn the engine on, and right away you're greeted with that raspy, delicious sounding exhaust. And it puts me personally, it puts me in a mood. It puts me in a certain kind of mood, and I'm just like, the instant I hear that engine turn on, I immediately go, it's gorilla time, and that's how I drive. Because the temptation is there. The temptation to throw down the gauntlet in a car like this is always there. It wants you to drive like a complete maniac. And that's the problem, right? We're on public roads. I cannot possibly ever squeeze out the maximum potential of what this car can do on a public road, or highways for that matter. So you're always going to be stuck chasing that high, but you'll never get it because you're going to be stuck in traffic 80% of the time. So unless you have like a nice circuit somewhere around you, like the twisties or whatever, but even then, that's a risk. A car like this, in my opinion, truly belongs on a racetrack where you can just go nuts. You can go nuts. You can drive like a complete maniac, and you're allowed. And you will, in fact, get the full potential and enjoyment out of this car. So in an ideal world, and I think I'm working towards that, I want a bigger house. I want a garage big enough for several cars where a car like this would be in my collection, in my fleet. And I'm just gonna go through this corner here, pardon me. Third gear, here we go. Woo! What I like about this is just the grip is so insane. But also there's a lot of nannies in this, which make you think that you're a better driver than you actually are. So you're not gonna get that tail spinning too easily, and it will pull you out of the shit through all its fancy pants controls. But mark my words, if you turn all that shit off, you will spin out and wrap yourself around the tree. You are not a good driver. I don't have any delusions about being a good driver. It's just that this car is very good at making you think that you are a good driver. That segue aside. So yeah, that's just how it is. I mean, for me, I almost think it's sinful for me to be putting all these miles on this car just boring highway miles, going to and from work, getting groceries, and then trying desperately to drive like a maniac because the temptation is always there. And that's why, yeah, like I said, in a perfect world, in my collection, there will be an M4, maybe even tuned, but for 90% of my driving purposes, because I'm fucking John business right now. That's what I do. I go to work and I do a bunch of business. I was a businessman that's doing business. You get what I'm saying? So therefore, this isn't really appropriate because it puts me in a mood and that mood stays with me. I start my day with gorilla mode and then I take that to work with me. It's because the problem with loud cars, fast cars, and people trying to squeeze every last ounce of it, of their sports cars out on public roads, is that there is a public tax that you have to pay for this. It turns you into an asshole. It comes at a cost of you flying, blowing the doors off of everyone, cutting people off, driving like a maniac, everyone thinking you're an asshole or you're too loud. And you might not care about that stuff, but I do care. I don't want my enjoyment of this car to come at the cost of everyone else. Where everyone else that's what you'll become, right? You'll be on the highway, you're like, fuck all these normies and their goddamn Honda Accords driving the speed limit. I just want to go. I want to break the law. That's how it's gonna be, and that's why I need a calmer car. I'm gonna trade this in, most likely for a BMW M550. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Bootman, you incredibly handsome man, the M550 is actually, in a straight line at least, probably as fast or even faster than the M4. Yes, I'm not giving up what happens when I press the gas pedal down all the way. I don't want to give that up. But what the M550 does offer, in addition to that, is soft ride. It's basically like a limousine, very calm, very quiet. I do lose, I do lose the good stuff. I lose the manual transmission, but I don't care. Again, I'm just commuting, and I'm stuck in traffic. In traffic, having a manual transmission is not exactly a fun experience. So I'll go with that. It'll be a much calmer car. It's all-wheel drive. It'll be more practical, especially in the winter. Eventually, at some point, I will have a second car, perhaps an M4. We'll see. But that's kind of my rationale here. Right now, I'm at a point. I tried this. I loved it. I would love to be back in it. But for your day-to-day, as your daily drive, if you can only have one car, I think you owe it to yourself, if you can, to own this for a little time, for a short time. Just try it like I did. But then we all have to grow up sometime, right? So that's where I'm at. And that's why I'm probably going to wind up trading this in. Speaking of chasing highs, like when I see an empty highway, I'm like, I look in my rear view mirror, I look far ahead, I'm like, coast is clear. Here's one of my favorite things to do. I'm in 6th gear right now. Downshift into fucking 3rd. Let's fucking go! Woo! Holy shit, this one. Oh man. Oh, that's fucking crazy. That's one of the things I love about this. You go from 0 to 60 and from 60 to very illegal, very fast. It just keeps pushing you. All that massive amount of torque through that rear wheel drive is just outstanding. Then there's also the question of reliability. Actually, this has been a very reliable car for me. I mean, I put 10,000 miles on it. It has not needed anything except an oil change in those 10,000 miles. I think BMW did a good job engineering the S55 engine. They built it for reliability. I mean, of course, there's going to be costs associated with maintaining such a thing. But if nothing breaks, there's really no cost of maintenance. But, of course, the parts are going to be more expensive. So, like, a consumable like brakes, can't get away from that. So just to do the rear shoes and rotors in the back, it's about $1,000. You could probably go cheaper than that with some aftermarket stuff. But if you go with BMW stuff, $1,000 back, and the front is the same story. So, but they do give you a discount. So if you do it all around, probably $1,500 brake job, and that's not cheap at all. And that's if you do it yourself, which, me, that's what I would do, because it's a brake job, not a big deal. So there's, of course, going to be a cost associated with all this performance you're getting. But yeah, to even suggest that, oh, BMWs are so unreliable, and what are you going to do when all the electronics break? I think those are just excuses people make to themselves why they don't want to spend the money on something like this. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the video and the stream of consciousness. Thanks for watching.